What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of B is for Build. In today's episode, we are working on the camper truck. We are going to be painting the entire camper truck using a truck bed liner. A really DIY friendly, easy to use truck bed liner. We're going to coat the entire camper truck in it to have a nice, durable, textured look. We originally bought this truck sight unseen at auction, and it didn't look that bad. We thought we'd be able to fix it in about a week, and I was very, very wrong. The whole frame was damaged. We actually had to cut the frame off, weld in a new frame, and then we changed directions on the build and decided to go with a camper truck build instead. So I designed out this back habitat box. We built out all the framing, we sheet metaled it, built all the front out. We did a facelift on the front end, make it look more modern. And then in the last episode, we built out boxes that had tables integrated into them as well. So with all the exterior structure being done, it's finally time to get a nice coat of paint on this thing. And that's what we're gonna be doing in today's episode, but not before we do some last minute chores. We designed this really cool swing out back gate that helps protect the back gate, and it has two arms that were meant to latch together, but we had never built the latching mechanism. So what we decided we would do is drill a hole through both of these pieces at once in the same spot right down the center, and then we'd build kind of a rod that would align one arm with the next arm, and then we could send a lock through the end of that rod once it had gone through there to keep these doors shut. Oh, and now it is the time for a word from our sponsor. With awesome champions, intense PvE and PvP, new tactical systems, sounds like a pretty good game, right? Let me tell you about a game that has all of these, and it's a must play right now. Raid Shadow Legends is celebrating their 5-year anniversary, and they went absolutely crazy with the amount of giveaways for new players. Check some of this out. You get bonuses worth $100, including the Epic Champion Lady Etessa, 500,000 silver, and many more right from the start. Plus, after reaching level 25, you'll get an additional 500k silver, epic skill tomes, potions, and so on. But that's not all. After downloading using my link in the description, use the festive promo code FESTIVAL5 and you'll get another epic champion, Tarot, 500,000 silver, and endless amounts of other rewards. And again, this is all available by downloading using my link in the description or scanning the QR code on the screen right here. And Raid has a ton of exciting features and new additions that they've done over the last 5 years, with a ton of them being in the last 12 months. Like the live arena where you can show off your tactical prowess fighting other players in real time. That's my favorite part of the game. They've added mythical champion. It's a powerful new rarity of champion, and you can use the metamorph skills to transform between two different forms. And the Cursed City. It's one of Raid's biggest add-ons since the Doom Tower. It's got 100 different stages to complete with massive raid bosses, and you can rerun the stages each month. And to celebrate their 5-year anniversary, there's a party happening in Teleria. It's called the Festival of Creation. And there's a brand new legendary champion, Arman's Magnificent. So this is your opportunity to join into the festivities. Raid has never been so generous with the amount of stuff that they are giving away, and you can get it all by using my download link in the description right now. And come play with me. My username is B is for Build. My clan is also called B is for Build. I'll see you on there. Let's get down to work. And speaking of locks keeping things shut, we needed to find a way to keep the tabletops from sliding out as we drive down the road. A lock on it is also just a little added bonus, so hopefully nobody will get cheeky and decide to walk away with our tabletops. So we've got locks going on both of the tabletops just to the side. It'll lock them down so they don't fly out on the highway, and hopefully nobody will borrow them. We finished building out our rear storage box that goes onto this swing arm here. I apologize about the flickering and the time lapse. I think it's a issue going on with refresh rate of the camera versus the refresh rate of the LED lights versus the refresh rate of the sun, which I think is literally the speed of light, and it's just really, really unhappy. It's something we'll work on in the future. So we got this box welded onto its swing arm, and now we're moving on to the solar panel array that goes onto the roof. So we did everything to install these, but we didn't permanently install them before we wanted to paint. So the game plan for these is they are bolted in, and then they are also sealed in with seam sealer all around the side to create a nice weatherproof barrier so no water will creep in underneath them and through our bolt holes. And with that done, it's time to mask like we showed you earlier, and Oscar decided on some of these plastics to, out of an abundance of caution, use some adhesion promoter and then get a nice coat of primer on it before we sprayed a nice coat of primer on it. All right, guys, so you can see we've got the truck all masked up and ready for paint. Now, we're not going to jump right into the Raptor liner. We're actually going to hit this with a sealer primer. Sealer primer is not exactly necessary, but I do think it's going to be helpful on this. I think it's going to help everything stick a little bit better. I think it's going to help for us to have more even looking coverage as well. And it might even help a little bit with some water resistance, lastly, in case the Raptor liner doesn't hit every single little piece of metal or something like that. It's going to do, I think it's going to be a really good thing to have. So it's not required, but out of a sense of just wanting to try and do this as right as we can, and definitely don't want to ever have to come back and repaint a whole thing of Raptor liner because it's really hard to remove. We're trying to do it as right as we could possibly know how. So quick little walk around of all the handiwork that we got done in the days before. It's time to start painting. Got the truck all sealer primered up, and now, unfortunately, it's time to talk about mistakes. Now, on BS for Build, I always tell you guys, we try things, we work a little fast-paced, sometimes we do things that are different than other people, and we're honest about our mistakes. So something's been kind of looming, and it's becoming pretty obvious now, and I want to talk about it. Let's address it and talk about, I guess, what we would do to, if we were to redo it, how we would do it. This wall right here is absolutely massive. Now, don't pay attention to so you got a paint line there where one side's a little more matte and one side's a little more satin. That's all gonna go away. We're not worried about that. When we start to hit this from an angle, you could start to see wobblies. And you'll see a ton down there. That's where we were doing heat shrinking and working with stuff, because we're gonna be cutting a hole right there for our air conditioner exit. So we purposely did a lot of testing there and knowingly damaged that metal and made indentations and bumps off of it. But anyways, we're talking about wobblies. There are some wobblies in the side panel here. And part of the reason that we did all this work with angle is to keep a really straight edge. And the reason that the wobblies got introduced is when we had relatively small pieces of metal like this one and this one. Up here it was not nearly a problem. Hard to see, but very, very straight. Again, don't ignore the primer stuff. But over here, the wobblies. That's because the height of this piece of metal is not very tall. And then what we did is we welded that piece of metal in. And when we welded it, where we did the different tacks and stuff, it heated, it cooled, and metal shrinks and expands when it heats and cools. Wow, the camera's having a tough time focusing on that. And when you have expansion, it causes a bulge and it gets a wobbly in it. It is not the most professional. The rest of the panels, I will say, are looking pretty dang good. The truck itself is obviously very square. Up in the front, we got a tiny bit of wobbling, nothing too bad. These actually came out a lot better than I thought they would. But you could see a tiny bit of pinching up there. And again, it's all along the tack welds. And the other side looks way better. This side, you can see a little bit of wobbling right there and a little bit down there, but it's actually better than the other side. So that stuff annoys the crap out of me. I wanted this thing to look perfect. It's not perfect. I did start taking a look at trucks and RVs and other things as they drive down the road, and I noticed a lot of them have wobbles like we do as well. Again, so that happened because we were welding the steel, and the steel heats and contracts and shrinks and contracts. That's the same word. It expands and contracts, and you just end up with basically more metal than what you cut out in the first place. So some companies get away from this by using rivets. They rivet everything on so there's not that heating and contracting. And a lot of long haul trucks that you see are made really fast and stuff like that. I have a feeling they use probably thin aluminum sheeting and just a ton of rivets is how they're attached. And they don't get as much of that problem. Some companies that do like RVs, they'll use a fiberglass sheet, and again, that has to be riveted on, or it could be bonded on, or other things like that, but fiberglass obviously isn't gonna heat and contract. And I have a feeling that one of the other companies that made a box that goes in the back of a truck like this, a much smaller thing, I think they used really thick aluminum sheet and welded it, and they used thick enough sheet that it didn't warp when it welded. It's my guess, I don't really know. When we talk about all of those materials, they all cost like 3, 4, 5 times more than the steel cost, although in the grand scheme of things, the steel that went into making this cabin wasn't that expensive. I just hated the rivets look, so I didn't want to go with rivets, so we went with steel and we went with welding. This is a weird one where I have to say, if I was to do it again, I do not know what I would do or how I would do it. There isn't a really clear answer to me. If you didn't mind rivets and the look of the rivets, I would definitely say go that way. So that's the lesson. And because we have a little bit of this wobbling, let me show you what that's caused. It sure is hard to see, but let me show you. This is a real nice straight piece, and you can see that our angle, our flat metal is real straight up against it, going on through here. And then we have a bit of a wobble. This is where it goes in a little bit. And the sealer primer is kind of helping show us that too. So you can see a little gray behind there. That would be a terrible water catcher. That thing is going to get water in it. And yes, we have seam sealer on the other side, but I don't want to rely on that, and I don't want to let water get in here in the first place. So we were going to Raptor liner today, but we had to take a pause and make sure that we build this thing right. So we are now getting some black seam sealer, and every vertical edge here, we are going to seam seal really nicely and cleanly, so we still have this nice hard edge that I like cosmetically. I do like the hard edges that we're going with on this truck, but we're going to get the seam sealer in there, and then we'll be able to paint over that, and it will improve the looks of it, but it will definitely make it much more waterproof, because the last thing we want is to spend all this time and all this money building this thing and then have a leak on the interior of it. Seam sealing is complete. It went a lot faster than we thought it would. It still looks great. All of our edges are nice and crisp still, but we got a lot of good like filling in done there. So I'm super happy that we went ahead and did that. And now it's time to start spraying. Let me show you the game plan. Raptor liner. So this is Raptor liner. We're not sponsored by them in any way. I made a video many years ago about Raptor lining my FJ, and that was basically a durability test, and we'd give it a shot and see how it did. It did phenomenally well. We still drive the FJ around to this day. Every piece of that car that I prepped correctly, meaning the paint that got sanded before it got Raptor linered, the Raptor liner is still on there, still holding strong, still cleans well, and still looks good. I also put this on my Range Rover when I redid the roof. Also had great results there as well. So it's something that I really recommend. There's a couple other reasons that it's pretty cool for DIY. One is it's a textured finish. So if you're new to bodywork, or you're working on something like a utility truck or something like that, you don't have to spend as much time doing the final detail work on the bodywork. So as you can see right here, we have a little bit of sanding marks right here that would usually show through, and those, once they get textured, they're just not going to show through. So you don't have to worry about that as much. Also, about air, you don't need as large of an air compressor and an air system. Something like this, or even a smaller one, can do you just fine. Because the Raptor liner doesn't have to be as atomized as a traditional automotive paint. Another cool thing too is you can put it on very thick. So as long as you're not getting runs in it, which is quite honestly kind of hard to get runs in it, you can really just keep putting it on there. So for us, the biggest thing that I'm going to want to do is, I saw some Raptor liner in Tokyo Auto Salon, like Japan's SEMA, basically. Tokyo Auto Salon, the company had a booth there, and they had achieved a pretty cool texture that I want to try and get on this build. So we're going to be starting on the roof, and where nobody's going to see what we're doing. We're going to just practice to make sure we're getting really good coverage, and then we're going to start working out different texturing techniques. And I would say the other part to make sure that you want to do this is you want to try and make sure you keep your wet edge and flow your wet edge properly as you go through. And if you don't know what that means, it's basically you're not spraying brand new wet over something that's really dry. You're going to try and work the wetness all the way through so it all dries evenly, and that'll help you not have splotchy spots. But if you do get splotchy spots working on Raptor liner, like we probably will have some in here, my advice too is don't panic. Wait, let it cure out, and let all of those gases to off gas and stuff like that, and it usually does a great job of kind of blending all back together and looking uniform.
Oscar just went to get new gloves and well, you're working with acetone.
Yeah, but
gloves aren't acetone proof.
It should be.
not the thin ones. But we don't have to use a paint gun to do this.
No,
we
I
use
just wanted to clean it.
Oh, okay, yeah. We're gonna use a Raptor liner gun, which looks something like this right here. We're all ready to roll.
All right, guys, it is a new day. We're back for another day. So we didn't get super far yesterday. We got the roof done. We tested out a couple different types of texturing, a couple different types of layers of thickness is what I would call it. And what we kind of decided was that we didn't have nearly the amount of material that we needed to be able to paint the whole thing. So we like doubled up, and we're still not even sure if that's enough, but we pretty much bought all the Raptor liner in town. There's a little bit left hanging here and there that we might have to get later. So carrying a wet edge I do think is really important. So let me show you how we're gonna do that. But I did wanna point out something else as well. If you're at home and you're doing one of these, this would be a great time to just vinyl wrap it. If you had a vinyl wrap team that could do large printed graphics and stuff like that, you could make this look really, really cool with large printed graphics if you were advertising for a company or, I don't know, anything. And if it's super high gloss, it'll hide the wavies a little bit better. So if you do have waves in your panels for any reason, super high gloss stuff does hide that pretty well. So yeah, you could just vinyl wrap the hell out of something like this and it would be good to go. This is like our work truck and a camper truck, and we're gonna be taking it out in the woods, hitting a lot of trees and stuff. Like, you know, this is 10 feet tall. So when we're out on logging roads, I fully expect to be bashing the top of that off of branches and whatnot. So we're going for something like a little bit more hardcore, and that's why we're doing Raptor liner. But I did want to point out that I think vinyl wrap is a really, really good candidate. You could just do a second coat of sealer primer so you feel really good about how sealed out the metal is from the elements, and then vinyl wrap this thing. So let me show you our game plan for painting the rest of the truck. This drawing is absolutely terrible, I apologize, but the game plan is to, on the large panels that all share the same facet, so the light is gonna bounce off them in the same way. You can see how obvious that transition is there, and that's just, you know, two different coats of paint or two different passes of paint. But as we look over here, you can see that that's all dark because the light's gonna bounce off that. It can't bounce off that at the same time. So that's where we're kind of deciding to stop our wet edge, because we obviously can't paint all the way around this from top to bottom and just do that like that. So we have to pick panels and we have to pick our wet edges. So side panel is one. We'll start at the top and we're gonna work our way down, and we're gonna try and, you'll see me try and keep it wet all the way on the top pass and then work that wet edge all the way down. And my stopping points are gonna be on that corner where I'm gonna spray very much using the corner to my advantage and just blast right past the corner so none of it will get on the other side. And the other stopping point is gonna be that edge right there. And then, so that's zone 1, and then we're gonna work from zone 1 to zone 2 to zone 3. Zone 4 is actually the truck itself starting here, and we'll carry that wet edge through here and go all the way around the truck till we're back on the other side. Where we'll hit this is zone 5 on the other side, zone 6 on the other side, and we'll finish it off by painting the back. Let's hope we have enough material. Let's get started. All right, we've got one side of the truck done. So all that you're seeing here and that is all done. Now you can see that's the difference between the wet and the dry. And the other thing that we did here was it's called like a blend coat or something that I saw on Raptor Liners, one of their YouTube videos. Concept is like, so when you go really heavy in one spot, it's gonna look darker, like how you can kind of see some darkness over there. By the way, the camera picks this up a lot better than your eyes ever could. And it looks darker over there. A lot of that is probably the amount of wetness, right? It's super, super wet, but also the texture smooths out. You have more material, it gets a little bit more smooth. So what you do is you wait for that to dry up enough till it's at the point where if you mist over it with the gun, you just a little bit, that it's not gonna immediately like sink in. And then you take the gun far back, like 2 feet, 3 feet, you swirling motions, big swirling motions. And what you're doing is you're just misting the whole panel. You're just blending a light mist into everything. And that essentially, it kind of seems like it retextures it all. But the good thing is it does it really, really evenly. So that's how you can see we had a super, super even amount here. And we were trying it over there, and we were watching the wet spots, and we noticed that they didn't blend in there. They didn't get covered. So that means you got to let it dry some more and do it again. Cool thing about this is I think you can, I mean, you should be able to do this for a long time after you paint, because you're kind of just like spackling it or texturing it. And so you got a big window of time that you can do this. The downside is you're using more material, right? So, but I do think that that is another thing that lends itself to DIY. If you get a little too much on in a spot, or you don't like the texture, you don't like how it went on, you can basically blend the whole dang thing out. So we blended all of that, and it's gonna be really hard to show you what it looks like when it's not blended. Oh yeah, so here you can see how it's kind of not blended, and over there, there's some darker spots. There's like a stripe. Yeah, and those will blend out. So that's pretty cool. Something we hadn't done before, and that is a big lesson for us to learn. So that was piece 1 and piece 2 completed. We're gonna start working on the truck now. That is piece 3. And I'm not gonna be able to carry a wet edge all the way across doing the roof, the kick panel, and the doors into the fender. So what we're gonna be doing is we're gonna spray, let the overspray go into the fender, because that's not a big deal, because we're using a textured thing. If you're doing car paint, that wouldn't be great. Anyways, we're gonna spray, and then we're gonna shove cardboard in the gap here, so that when I start to spray the fender and work over, I'm not gonna dry spray back on. Now, that being said, this dry spray problem, when you do the whole blending technique, it seems to be a lot less, because dry spray is really essentially what you're doing with the blending. You're adding dry spray everywhere. Again, this only works on textured. If you're doing this on a car, it's a nightmare. Dry spray is terrible. That's how you get, looks like sandpaper automotive paint. So yeah, we might not have to worry about dry spray as much if we're gonna blend everything, which we are, because it really, really is helpful. But we're still gonna do the cardboard anyways to try and do the best we know how. I started spraying, and I totally forgot that we have fender flares to put on here, and that really like rounds it out, makes it look so much better. This truck comes stock. I'm not sure if it comes stock with fender flares or not, but anyways, these ones are from Rough Country. They look badass. They've got cool beauty hardware in black, which we're gonna run with, or you could do them in chrome, either way, and then they actually bolt in from the bottom. So I went ahead and just sprayed the hood so we could get the rest out of the gun, and left the fenders as they are while Oscar installed these. So we got one on each side. They just really help fill in the space as we come out to the bumper and stuff, and makes the truck look so much better. So huge thanks to Rough Country for sending these out. They've also sent us some stuff for the interior of the build that we're gonna show you guys later on. I'll put a link to these individually and Rough Country's website in the description. Huge thanks to them for supporting us on like all of our off-road stuff. Super, super cool to see. And we love working with you guys. So that's really cool. We got them on there, and then I'll get them sprayed. And then when we're done spraying, then we'll put our hardware in so we have that nice contrasting color. All right, I want to show you guys a little bit of a progress update. So Oscar took over. These fender flares, by the way, they bolted up really fast and really easily. So the actual hardware comes in from underneath. We're gonna put the beauty hardware in when we're done painting. So fender flares got on. He painted this whole side very, very, very well. As we started getting over here, we're getting a little bit of striping on here. It's hard to see on this side. There's not as many lights, there's not as many angles to bounce off of, so it's a lot harder to see. So I did want to just point that out, that if you're following along, DIYing at home, this stuff's all very, very fresh. The most light that you can give yourself, the easier it's gonna make your life. And also, this stuff does dry out and even out over the long term. Don't look at the really wet stuff, because that's so fresh it doesn't even count, but it dries out and it evens out. So, but what we decided we were gonna do is whole truck and then come in and blend coat. But since we wanted to get more light, we went ahead and opened the whole garage door, and we're out here now focusing on the back. And so there's a lot of different facets to all of these railings and different things. We got to hit them all right. So we're going to go ahead and paint up the whole back, and then we're going to start blending everything. And that'll be able to show you a little bit of before and after as well. We might though, I'm not 100% sure. We might even like unmask the truck and pull it outside so I can really see truthfully how everything looks true to the daylight. But that'll be a decision to make after we paint the back. Alrighty guys, so at this point we've got the whole truck covered in the Raptor liner, but we want to do more blending. So you can see there's areas like right there that could be blended in. That panel right there, I did a bad job of blending. The upper panel I did it pretty good. There's a little spot up there. This is going to be a lot of looking at this with lights coming in and being very critical of the things. Now you can see that's where a wet edge met a dried edge, and that's that transition that you see there. And again, we're going to try and blend that out. And we're gonna work on all that. Well, you'll see on the back here as I walk us around, it's just a lot of not dried paint, and that also has somewhat of the same effect. So again, when this all fully dries up in about seven days to like 2 weeks, and especially like years down the road, I've never seen it have any of these weird transition marks, but I wanna do the very best that we can in-house while we're sitting here spraying. And so I think, like I said, we're gonna give it a good walk around and blend everything out, and then I think we might pull the masking off and actually pull it into the parking lot so we can see better. But yeah, this panel right here, I can see I definitely need to just go over again. I think what I did is I moved too fast, and those spots that you see are dark are the parts that kind of didn't get blended in. But obviously, once you get down low, it's very hard to see those mistakes. So time to start doing that. Now, as far as the amount of material that we've been through, this is a huge vehicle. I did my FJ Cruiser with just one of these kits. If you're gonna do one with blending, I'd say get an extra 25–50% more, so maybe 2 kits. Makes it very affordable. That's like $275 for paint supplies. On this one, Oscar, do we have any idea how many kits we've been through? It's like 4 or 5 kits. 4 or 5 kits. That's what we're going through. We have 1 full kit left over right now. That thing's still good to go. That one's full, that one's half full. So we're gonna probably have gone through about 4 kits, but this stuff is also really good, I think, to have just laying around your house if you have extra. We use it for a lot of stuff. That texture coat, that last coat we did, made absolutely all the difference on this project. I mean, it really took it over. Like, it just improved it so much. I think like what it's technically doing is adding a ton of texture, a bunch of different facets of highs and lows. So it camouflages any of the like low smoothness consistencies underneath it. But I mean, that doesn't actually matter what it's technically doing, because it looks absolutely phenomenal. Remember, the camera is a little bit more critical than the human eye, but it's still, I mean, it just looks really good. And another cool thing is after this all has time to dry up, I'm pretty sure tomorrow we can come back chemically. I'm pretty positive it will still bond, and we can touch up little spots if we feel necessary. But really, I'm not seeing much that I would even want to change. So this is great. We landed with 1 extra bottle. So yeah, that'll be our touch-up bottle. And we nailed it. I am so happy. We talked about the wobblies. Human eye right now, you can't even see them on the camera. You can see them faintly. They really are not nearly as intense as when we had just the sealer primer on there. So that's really good too, just as far as like cosmetically overall, how the truck looks. So let's see how it looks with a little bit of the wrappings off. We'll go ahead and pull some of our, the heck is this stuff called? I think I got too much paint fumes. Me and Oscar both forgot the word for this stuff, the plastics. Whatever, we're pulling that stuff off. Masking. Looking really good, starting to get things off and cleaned up. Now, when you start to pull your tape, if you run into issues like we did, like right here where you get a little red showing through right here, just any little masking mistakes, it's not too late. Do it when it's early, when you can. Oh yeah, this was a big one too. Grab a paintbrush, much smaller than this one, small paintbrush, and just grab your leftovers and you can just dab them in there and fix those lines up real quick. So I'm gonna do that right now. Got those edges all cleaned up, and this is definitely a step back and look at, this has now been multiple years long project that has finally kind of cosmetically gotten to a big milestone. This is like so cool to look at. I mean, this truck started with us buying it with this front end crash like it was, trying to use it to go rescue a bunch of our race cars that were on a trailer that had broken down, and we turned lemons into lemonade, built the 3D model that looks very similar to this. And I mean, once we start doing, we need to get, I think you guys let me know. I mean, the chrome is not a terrible contrast. I think the wheels and tires and that what'd you call that, the step, that looks a little outdated, so I think we should go for a little bit more modern versions of that. We got our window glass to put in here, which is like a tinted kind of black look. It's gonna really, you know, help progress it along cosmetically, but man, it looks good. And let me show you the back. We obviously don't have our spare on there, but with these swinging gates with the box and everything, and the bumper, the extended bumper and everything that we did, looks super, super cool from the back. I'm gonna do a bunch of research about how to do DOT approved lighting so we can make sure that we have all the lighting. We're gonna start plumbing that very soon. I've read all of your guys' comments about make sure we have enough red and yellows. Can't tell if that's a dent or dark spot. It's showing up on the camera. It wasn't really showing up in person, but that's an example of something that we'll go ahead and touch up tomorrow if it's still there. But other than that, the transformation on this was very, very good from where we started with how many splotches we had on the back. The blend coat just made it so much better. Thank you guys so much for joining us on this one. On a more meta scale, we're working on this truck, the Lamborghini Murcielago, the Italian yacht, which is kind of on pause right now because we're in talks with insurance. They got really mad at me again. Funny. And the new boat. So a lot of stuff going on all at once. So we're going to be kind of jumping projects and different stuff like that. But I am in the backgrounds, hard at work on the Murcielago as well. Thanks so much for joining us. If you have any comments, what you'd like to see us do with this, more changes, more comments for the interior or anything like that, please drop a comment below. I will check that out. Thank you guys again for watching. Subscribe if you don't want to miss our next episode on this project, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace! Come on.